Why would anyone choose to live in Auckland or in the Auckland area? So many times we hear people say, no, I don't want to live in the Auckland area. It's too expensive. It's too busy. We decided to find someone who chose to live in the Auckland area and why they like living there. In fact, they love living there.
Have you ever thought, we made a mistake?
I want to say yes because...
You're going to meet Ryan. He moved to New Zealand 4 years ago from Nashville, Tennessee. He loves living in Auckland. Here's why.
Hello, Ryan, and welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you here.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I'm super excited. So we're going to jump straight in. And can you just introduce yourself?
My name is Ryan. I live in the Auckland area, in an area called Whangaparaoa. I have been in New Zealand for 4 years now with my wife, who is a school teacher, and my two children, who are now 6, almost 7, and 9. My son is the younger one. My daughter is the 9-year-old.
Right. And you've lived here.
Kind of where we are right now.
You've lived here. Do you know what? I've just got to say before we start, I love how you pronounce Whangaparaoa because the first time I ever heard about this, it was from a family who were from England and they just moved to that area and they were from Essex. Lovely people, but they had such a strong Essex accent. And they said, we're living in Whangaparaoa. And they were like, so it was one of those things that when I spoke to you on the phone and you said it, was just like, oh, that's so lovely. The way you pronounce it is just so lovely.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work trying to get used to the pronunciation of Maori words.
Yes.
Especially, we always talk about the WH sound, the WH letters, making the f sound, which
it's
trust
tricky.
me, if you actually saw Whangaparaoa on a map, you would not pronounce it that way.
No, you wouldn't.
So, yeah.
Okay, so why did you choose to move to New Zealand?
So early on in my wife and I's relationship, we knew we were going to think about moving over to somewhere overseas. Yeah. And we were kind of waiting for our kids to get school aged to get there. I like to say 2016 happened. We changed our timeline and said, let's just do it now. So after looking around, my wife saying, I got to go someplace that speaks English. Languages are not real great with her. So we looked around and we said, well, don't think we'll be able to handle the UK winters. My wife's not sure about only having 7 or 8 hours of sun a day. And then we looked around and we kind of settled on New Zealand or Australia and said, you know what, New Zealand, just kind of reading about the politics and reading about the country itself and all of the stuff that they do, just said, I think that's a better fit.
Yeah.
Very, very outdoorsy lifestyle. So we said, let's give that a go. I'd never been. So we just said, let's take it on faith and jump.
Right. What do you do for a job, Ryan?
I'm in IT.
Right.
So I test software. Mostly. Yeah. So there's a really good IT market now in New Zealand.
Was it hard for you to get over here with IT, or did you get a job offer, or what did you do?
I won't say it was hard in the sense of once I got somebody to talk to me, it wasn't too bad. It did take a long time for that. I mean, it took a lot of applications. I think I sent out something around 30 to 40 different applications and heard from almost no one. It kind of took that moment of somebody had actually put their actual email address on the job listing. So instead of just applying, I emailed that person directly and said, look, here's my situation. I'm interested. Is it worth me checking it out? And they called me back.
Yes.
Or they wrote me back and then we started calling. Yeah.
Perfect. Don't you just find that's the way though in New Zealand? It's like if you go that extra mile, that extra step and go, do you know what? I'm just going to contact this person. That's what we did. And it's like, and you get results. It's like.
Oh, absolutely. My wife and I do joke about that because she's done it a couple of times with various positions that she's had. New Zealanders want to hear your story. They don't want to see you as a piece of paper. They want to see you as a human being. That's why stuff like cover letters and those emails and all that kind of stuff matters.
Yeah.
Because it says, who am I as a human being?
Yeah.
And I find that quite fascinating.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. Just how long did it take from thinking, right, I want to move to New Zealand to actually getting over here? How long did that take from getting off the plane?
I got to say, probably from the first email I sent to that person. If you're talking about the pre-prep, it probably took me a good month or so before I even got somebody to talk to me. That one was probably, I want to say about 6 months.
Really?
For us.
6 months?
Yeah.
That's quick.
It was. And we kept thinking it was taking forever.
Yeah.
Just because we had to do some stuff with, they go through all the medicals and all that kind of stuff. And I had to get a couple extra little tests, and we just kept thinking, oh my goodness, they're never going to hold the job for me. They're never going to hold this job for me,
Yeah.
But they did, they sent me over the contract, which is, something we're not used to in the States, is actually, having a contract to sign. But from that time, I think it was probably 4 or 5 months from the time they actually said they wanted to hire me and sent me the contract.
Right. Okay. So so the company, I take it, was in Auckland.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in an area called the North Shore. It's a little bit north of the Harbour Bridge that goes into Auckland from the north, in an area called Albany.
Right.
So yeah, I got the job there and just kind of looked around and said, okay, guess we're moving to Auckland.
Yeah.
Where do we want to live?
Right. Okay.
That kind of thing.
So just because I'm nosy, Parker, did you ever think, well, I'll just take the job and then maybe go and live somewhere else in New Zealand? Or were you always thinking, no, Auckland's going to be the place where we're going to live?
I think not knowing New Zealand very well and not knowing where the markets and such were, for an IT person, you have to look at where the jobs are.
Right.
That's kind of your first and foremost.
Yeah.
I got to find a place to work.
Yep.
And so you look in the Auckland area and there's a lot of positions. Now, again, the wife being a school teacher, she can live just about anywhere.
Yeah.
So occasionally, I guess we sort of consider the option of going somewhere else, but we're kind of settled and we like where we are, so.
We're going to talk about where you are in just a minute, but first of all, tell me, when you arrived in Auckland, what was your initial thoughts? Because you've never been to New Zealand before, so what happened when you got off the plane and you'd been here a few days? What did you think? Was it like what you expected, or?
I think we weren't sure what to expect. I mean, we were just in such a haze. I remember we were kind of driving around and looking around, especially trying to figure out where we're going to live. There was this great feeling of what we call the same but different.
Yeah.
So everything is very similar in that kind of, we all come from the UK originally, right? So there's a lot of kind of similarities. So there's a lot of that westernized feel, right? So you can look around and go, okay, this kind of feels like what I'm used to seeing. But there were a lot of very subtle differences that you start realizing as you spend time, whether it's just attitudes of people or whether it's just things here are slightly more, like stores are slightly more specialized, let's say, than what I'm used to in the US. And those kind of little things where you just kind of get used to, foods, stuff is similar but different, just a lot of interesting moments like that.
I really love what you said about the same but different, because that sort of sums it up, doesn't it? When people say to you, they're like, oh, so what's it like, compared to the UK, or what's it like? And it's so difficult, isn't it? Because you have to be in New Zealand, I think, just to appreciate, like you say, everything, the people, the attitude, the pace of life. It just all goes into it, doesn't it? It's just, you have to be
I
here.
remember one of the biggest things for me when meeting new people was the striking realization for me that nobody asked me what I did for a living.
No, I know. I love that. Except me, I'll ask you because I'm nosy.
Sure.
So what do you do?
I think once you're having a conversation, it eventually comes up more organically, right? Where you just kind of start talking about where you spend your time and it's, oh, I work here. But it's very, in the States, when you're meeting new people, it is very similar to just kind of say, oh, so what do you do?
Right, yeah.
You meet new parents at schools and you're like, oh, I'm so-and-so's dad. Okay, great. What do you do for a living? It's the icebreaker. And here it's not.
No.
People just start chatting away about whatever.
Yeah.
Usually whatever you're dealing with at the time.
But we've said this before, you've got to be careful there, because you're talking to someone, they're all like dressed scruffy or something, and you're like, because they don't tell you what they do, and then they walk away, and then someone goes, oh yeah, do you know he owns like half of New Plymouth or something,
Oh yeah. People don't, at least as a whole, I mean, you'll probably see it more in the Auckland area than you would in those areas where, how you dress and how you present yourself doesn't necessarily say what you do for a living.
Yes.
A lot of the people I work with in IT, you'd never know. You'd like, oh, is that person a tradie? Because they're just dressed in their shorts and they're doing, it's very different. People don't make a lot of assumptions based on work.
No.
Which is very nice.
Well, Brian's a tradie and he wears a suit every day.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you, right?
I'm only kidding. Right, listen. So you
Wouldn't surprise me.
gets up, put his little tie on.
Oh yeah.
Right, so you live in the Whangaparaoa area. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit more about that, where it is in relation to Auckland, how long it takes to get to CBD and
Sure.
things?
The Whangaparaoa Peninsula is north of Auckland. It's kind of still technically, I guess, within the Auckland Bay. So if you go up the bridge and just keep going north a bit, like I said, there's the Albany area, and then you keep going and there's a little peninsula that shoots out. And most people know of it as having Shakespeare Park, which is at the end of the street next to the Army Training Center, which I know you wanted to ask about.
Yes, I do.
So we'll get to that. But it's just this little peninsula with lots of nice little areas. It's called the Hibiscus Coast. I typically, when I go to work in the CBD, there's a ferry. So I just take the boat in.
Oh, lovely.
It's about an hour to get in. I think it's 50 minutes.
Who cares? You're on a boat.
It's great. I know. It's fantastic. And there's no stops with this ferry.
Oh,
so
lovely.
you can like, I just need a nap. You know, you just lay back and you take a nap. You can read your books. You can do whatever you want to. So it's really nice from that perspective.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah, it's been great. And then from there, I'll just walk to wherever my office is.
Right. Is it a posh area? Whangaparaoa, is it posh, would you say?
No.
No?
No. At least that hasn't been my experience.
Right, okay.
For the most part, what you're looking at is, I joke, I live in what's called Gulf Harbor, which is at the very end of the peninsula. And it's pretty much just immigrants and retirees.
Right.
So you'll find a lot of people up here just of very diverse backgrounds, which is pretty fascinating. But for the most part, I think the peninsula has its mix, but it's a lot of old batches and stuff. So you're not talking about a lot of big fancy houses or anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
I've got to ask you, because we've got a private New Zealand community, and one of the girls in that community, she wants to live in Whangaparaoa, and she said, could you just ask Ryan about the army base that is in Whangaparaoa?
So
Spill the beans,
first,
Ryan.
Yeah, it's not really a base. So that's the first thing I'll say there. It's just kind of a training facility. You very rarely will see anything resembling army, just because, I still joke about the New Zealand Army isn't a massive thing.
No.
It's a valued thing, but we're the equivalent of a state size, like one US state. It's about that size and population. So you got to think about what that would equate to when you're looking at a military. So it's just a little training facility at the end of the peninsula. It's actually right next to Shakespeare Park, where a lot of people go. When you drive down the road, you kind of come to the end of the road, and on the left is a beach that a bunch of people go to. On the right is Shakespeare Park, which is this big, beautiful area that also has a little beach, but it's also got like a bird sanctuary and a bunch of stuff like that. And then straight ahead is the Army training facility. So it's, nobody really pays attention. There's, occasionally there's like a guard or somebody standing at one of those big lifting arms.
Yeah.
It's very informal.
I think she's probably imagining the same as me, like high walls with barbed wire wrapped around and people with guns stood there, it's just...
Yeah, there's none of that.
No.
So,
all right, okay, we got that sorted
yeah.
then. You say that you take the boat in, so you're 45 minutes, 50 minutes from out, are you about 50k from CBD?
Yeah, if we drive in, I think if you're talking about not too much traffic, which I know will be questions that will probably come up in a bit. Yeah. Without traffic, we can probably be in the CBD in less than an hour. I mean, we're talking an hour-ish. Quite honestly, probably 20 to 25 minutes of that is just getting off the peninsula, just because that's the peninsula has one road going in and off because it's a peninsula.
Yep.
And I live at the end of it.
Silly boy.
I know. But again, I take the boat, so what do I care? That's where the boat is. So it's a 2-minute drive for me. So that's about how long it would take to get to the CBD if I were driving on a good day.
Because we made this podcast once and we said... We're like, things you'll never see in New Zealand. You'll never see a 5-hour traffic jam. And so many people contacted us and said, well, you've never lived in Auckland, And it's like, oh, okay. Is it as bad as they say it is?
I can't say that's never happened, but can any city say that's never happened, right? I think typical, you're talking about, if I was driving in the city, Like I said, it would probably be an hour without traffic. During peak times, it would probably take me 2.
Right.
2.5, depending on where I'm going. And I hear from the south side of Auckland is no better. When you think about the way that the city is set up and shaped, there's a lot of water on one side, right?
Yeah.
So there's only so many ways to get in. So it can be pretty bad if you're trying to drive. I usually tell people don't bother.
No.
Because
is there good public transport?
There is.
Yeah.
There is. I find the busing system's really good. A lot of bus lanes and a lot of those kind of things that allow kind of nice and easy movement through if you're on the buses. There's bike lanes. I think from the south side, and I'm not quite sure about the other side, there's trains that run.
Right.
So you do get there's a lot of options.
Yeah.
I know people that bike just about everywhere.
This is what people say. This is what I hear a lot. And this is why I wanted to do this episode, because I hear so many people saying, oh yeah, why would you want to live in Auckland? It's so expensive. It's so busy. And you know, I'm speaking as a tourist here, but whenever I go to Auckland, I love it. And I love all the surrounding areas and the beaches and the bush. I think people get the wrong, I don't want to say they get the wrong idea, because I don't want to upset all the Auckland, you know, the people who, it's such a touchy subject, but tell me why, if I would have to spend an hour commuting to Auckland, tell me what would make that worth it. What makes you stay in Auckland? Why do you love it so much?
And you know, there is that perception, especially among, I think it's especially among New Zealanders, right? There is New Zealand and there is Auckland. Like even amongst the people, that's their perspective. And I think it is just from kind of the Kiwi standpoint, it's a big city, right? It's a really big city and it feels like a big city. As an American, it just feels like a big city, you know, from that perspective. I find it's not as expensive as people thought it would be. As I find that most of your standard kind of costs of living aren't significantly higher. Your biggest expense is going to be housing. That is New Zealand wide.
Yeah.
Housing is always going to be expensive.
Yeah.
No matter where you live, just expect it to take a good percentage of your paycheck, right? The average house in Auckland, I think, is somewhere around 1.1 million right now. So it's not
is that
cheap
though in the
that.
CBD? Is that just when you say that because?
Yeah, the problem is you do have these areas with ridiculously expensive houses. So that does affect your average.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Up here on the peninsula, it's not going to cost as much because I think a lot of New Zealanders don't like to commute. Some of us that are used to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not as bad.
Maybe that's what it is. I think you've got a really good point there, because we lived in Bath in the UK, and to take my son to school, we live 2 miles from the city centre, but to get my son to school could take us 40 minutes sometimes, like, you know.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that's a really good point. So I wonder if that's why, because we don't think. I mean, I do now because I've been in New Zealand for 12 years.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So you'll find a lot of people. I'll talk to friends that live at the end of the peninsula is Orewa and Silverdale, kind of two of the little townish areas. And there are definitely people that kind of go like, you live all the way in Gulf Harbor? Like, it's 20 minutes, you know? So to me, it's like, it's what? You know, so there is some of that perception. If you're buying a house, you can kind of expect that to be expensive. That's going to be a reality. But otherwise, most of the other cost of living stuff from my lifestyle of living as a family, 2 kids, from what I've seen, it's not, aside from housing, it's not a huge expense difference. But I find in this area, there's some really good stuff when it comes to, because it's the largest city, you're talking about the most diverse city.
Yeah.
So you've got there's lots of different people and lots of different perspectives of life, which I prefer. But there's also lots of great places to eat, and there's lots of, you know, that kind of culture side of things. There's always some sort of event going on in the weekends that you can usually see. There's some sort of thing going on. So that's kind of nice, especially with kids and everything. I really like is the weather up here.
I was going to say about the weather. Yeah. Is it warm?
Yeah, I don't know how it is. You're not so far away, but since you're on the West Coast, it makes a big difference, which is something people need to not underestimate when it comes to New Zealand. Where you live can have wholly different weather patterns. Yeah. When I found out the South Island is both hotter in the summer and colder in the winter, it kind of broke my head to be like, but it's like near Antarctica.
Yeah.
So should it just be colder?
I'm glad you said that, because you're intelligent,
Yeah.
you're in IT, and even you don't know. So.
It's so weird. And once I learned why, I kind of understood how the weather patterns happen and stuff, but it's still, you just have that moment of going, why does that make sense?
So the weather, you like the weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's mild. We almost never see snow. I mean, you can know this. There's one place on the North Island that gets snow, and that's because it's a really tall mountain.
And where is that?
And that's yeah, Whakapapa.
Right.
Yes.
But guess what? I'm sitting in Taranaki right now, and I'm looking out of my window at a mountain with snow on it. So you can just add us. Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So they ski on on Mount Taranaki. They ski on it. I mean, you have to be really hardcore. It's not like your average, like, proper ski, la 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 la. Like, it's hard. It's for hardcore people. But yeah, you can ski. You can ski up on Taranaki.
There's two places.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. There's one ski slope. How's that? It's it's wintertime. I'm in short sleeves. I have no heat on in my house. And for those in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the equivalent of, mid-December, let's just say.
Yeah.
But the sun is the biggest difference in the world in this country because, people, for those of us that have been around long enough to remember, like, the hole in the ozone layer thing that still exists is over New Zealand. But yeah, I mean, if you have a nice sunny day, your house is still warm.
How are your kids? How are your kids liking it up there?
Kids love it.
Do they?
I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that my daughter still says to me, "Daddy, I'm so glad we came here."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And she loves the fact that she goes to school and year round they play outside several times a day. In the States, recess is iffy as to whether or not it exists in a lot of schools nowadays. But they spend a lot of time outside. In wintertime, you'll see kids running around barefoot with no jumpers on. It's just not as necessary. I mean, we still get some cold days and everything, but it's not. It's nowhere near, some of the places I lived in the U.S. So.
And also, I was thinking about you the other day because I thought I'm going to ask you this because it was Tessa's birthday. It was a couple of days ago. So 10th of June, she had her birthday. On the 1st of June, I went into the local record shop in New Plymouth and I said, can I order this album? Because she's into putting album covers on her wall and it was like this really out there album. And I thought, she'll love that. So I went in and I said, can I order it? And he's like, yeah. It'll come down from Auckland. And I went, yeah, okay. So it was the 1st of June. He had 10 days notice. And I'm like, so will it be here for a birthday? 9th of June, I go in there and I'm like, is it here yet? And he said, no, it hasn't come yet. And I just thought, sometimes I would like to live in a big city where I can just go and get what I want. It's just rather than having to.
Yes, the shop. There's the one thing people have to understand about living in New Zealand is don't expect anything fast.
And that's charming and frustrating at the same time sometimes.
It is. It's great. Auckland, you're more likely to get it quicker.
Right.
There's more likely to be a shop that has those slightly more specialty items. At least I've spent some time in lots of the little towns around. And I just, I'll drive through a town and go, how do you get this thing, whatever, just some small thing that you need once in a blue moon, or you go like, oh, where's the local like hardware store, where can I go? And it's, oh, well, you got to go like 2 towns over is the Mitre 10, or something like that. So yeah, it's nice to just be able to be in Auckland and go, okay, even where I am, I can find stuff within like 45 minutes. And that's, again, most of the time it's because it takes me 25 minutes to get off the peninsula. So yeah, if you're in Auckland proper, there's stores for everything.
Yeah. You've just got that variety, haven't you? And I suppose that was so attractive to some people. It's like you say, it's just, it would have been attractive to me, I tell you what, last week, because she got a box of chocolates instead for her birthday. I was going to get your
inside, right? Yeah.
Just hang a tissue
Like,
up on your wall.
Get this.
So tell me, and we'll literally, but tell me, because New Plymouth, I'm talking about New Plymouth, Taranaki. If you walk down the street in New Plymouth, everyone it feels like a very friendly city. I mean, I'm a big fan of the city, but it feels friendly. Does that feel the same in Auckland?
I think so. I know, especially where I am. I mean, we're all coasties, you know. I mean, that's what we refer to. You know, it's everybody that lives on the Hibiscus Coast. But I've been in lots of areas where, you know, you still see that. I know I walk to work from the ferry terminal, and it usually takes me about 25 minutes or so to walk, just because I work in IT, so I don't get enough exercise. So I do the walk, and I'll see other people on bikes and walking as well, and people still smile and say good morning and that kind of stuff.
That's
and
nice.
I mean, that's in the CBD.
That's nice, yeah.
And I'm sure it's probably just like most cities where it's going to depend on where you are. And there's different areas that are probably still fine, but that doesn't mean everybody feels comfortable in them or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
I've lived in major cities, so it doesn't bother me that much. But I do like how I think it's just like a New Zealand thing where people are just a little more, hey,
yeah,
how you going?
Yeah.
You know, just you know, that kind of good morning. I'll greet you, you know, I won't stop you and talk to you if you're walking to work or whatever. But, you know, if I can't tell you the number of conversations I strike up just walking around.
It's because you're a chatterbox.
I am. I was definitely given the gift of blarney. So
have you
my Irish roots.
Have you ever thought, we made a mistake, I want to go back to America?
I want to say yes, because if friends of mine watch this video, but the reality is no.
Sorry, Mum and Dad.
I know. It's hard to say this, but I know I got myself in a little bit of trouble the first time we visited the States after we moved here, and it was very much just like, yeah, things are better. I'm just, you know,
I would
just
enough.
talk about that. And I feel this way 4 years on.
Yeah.
Especially, I think, as a dad, and just the stuff that kids can do here that people would be very hesitant to in the States.
Yeah.
Whether it's just stuff like my daughter took sailing lessons up here, you know, and it wasn't too expensive, and you're just like, oh, look at this. I can take and the very first lesson, they threw her on one of those little one-person sailboats and just said, go.
How old was she?
And 9. And she finished this class, and she came in and she was, Daddy, they let me go out by myself. I got to decide where I go. And there was a class of 15 or 20 of these kids all doing this, and you're going, this is insane. They would never do this in the US. But everybody's fine, you know, and so you do get more of that type of thing.
Yeah, and you know what I love as well, though, Ryan, is that in the UK, if you said, oh, my child goes to sailing club, oh, you'd have to be a millionaire, I reckon. But here it's just the same as, because they do it down at the port there, and it's just you know, I think it's like $20 a lesson or something. Yeah, for them to go sailing. It's brilliant.
It's something ridiculous like that. Where you're going, how is that possible? But I think, you know, it's very true. When I thought the same thing. Yeah. You know. When my mother-in-law was like, oh, I think I'm going to get Millie sailing lessons, and I'm always like, oh, that's a great idea. And I was like, sailing? Yeah. Ooh. I mean, do I have to buy a boat? I can't do, you know. And so it's like, oh no, they do all that, and it's no different than like taking swimming lessons or like my son does theater and stuff, and it's, you know, it's not significantly different. Yeah. It's, you know, living on a peninsula, living near so many beaches and so many, you know, opportunities to get in the water. It's just something they do.
Yeah. And that's what I wanted to ask you. I'm going to let you go, but I just want to ask you one more thing is, like, I'm talking about living in Taranaki here. I feel as if we can go in the country, you know, in the bush and to beaches, and there won't be anyone there, and you can just escape. Do you have that same access? Do you have access to that living where you do in the Auckland area?
Absolutely. There are plenty of opportunities for this. I mean, There are so many beaches in New Zealand, and there's so many, and we're not even talking about like massive major beaches. A lot of them are relatively small, but because of that, people are just spread out, and you get more of that kind of, you'll find that there'll be the more busy popular beaches for whatever reason. Maybe it's just a more congested area, but you can very easily go and say, oh, I'm just going to go to the next beach up where there's 3 people and a dog, and you just look around going, how is this even possible? Because going to the beach in the United States, unless it's dead of winter, there's people, and there's people everywhere.
Yeah, same as the UK.
And I don't think I've ever experienced a really busy beach.
No, I don't think I have, actually. I'm just trying to think.
No, I mean, there are a couple of times where I go, wow, this feels like a lot of people. But then it feels like a lot of people for New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's always how I'm, it's like, oh, I have to remember I'm getting so adjusted to the lifestyle here.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, it feels like a lot of people.
Yeah. What's all these people doing here?
There's 6 people and 2 dogs. That's so like, oh, so busy.
Yeah. I'm just so glad that you said that, because I think that from talking to you, I get the impression that you can have both, you can have the jobs, because what it is people are getting worried because they're coming over and the only jobs they can get are in Auckland, and they've heard all these horror stories basically of like, they're not going to be able to afford to live, they're not going to, it's going to be so busy, they're going to spend all the time in the car, and I from talking to you is, I think, like you say, if you're willing to go out 40 minutes, 50 minutes, even an hour, because that's what we'd do. We'd be exactly the same. We'd be like, well, if we want to live there, then you're going to have to sacrifice something. And that something might be an hour in the car. What mightn't it? Or on a boat, if you're lucky.
And I think the big thing is to remember that post-COVID, especially at this point, there are so many jobs that are at least part-time remote.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That there's a whole lot of people because for those people outside of New Zealand, we had some pretty extreme lockdown when we first started, right?
Right.
I mean, it was like you were homebound. So I think very quickly companies realized that they can still get stuff done and you can still work remotely. And there's the company that I was working for, they actually just changed their policy to say, oh, fine, anybody can work from home as much as you want. Because they just went, you know what, we don't care. They onboarded and hired so many people during lockdowns that they said, well, if we can get a new person in, people that have been here a while, who cares,
Oh, fantastic.
So you definitely see a lot more of that now. So even if you are a little further out, you can say to yourself, just talk to the company and say, what's your remote policy?
Yeah.
And you'll find a lot of them will, they may go, 2 days a week from home or something, but that's 2 fewer days where you don't have to drive in the office. Yeah. And so it takes away a lot of that kind of moments of saying it's a big city, it's going to be a commute.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. And you know what? And I know we want to do another podcast together, don't we? Because you
on the financials.
Yes, on the financials.
Americans.
And I've got this really good story to tell you about this house in that I was Googling in a place called Puhoi, I think it is. Yeah.
Puhoi is lovely.
Yes. And, well, I'll just tell you anyway. But anyway, so I was Googling it because I thought, okay, if I wanted to be an hour outside Auckland, what could I get? There was a house to rent. I am not joking, Ryan. It was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. It's set in like 10 acres of bush. It's $600 a week, which, okay, I know, is not cheap, but to be honest, when we rented our house, when we went traveling, we were charging $700. I think we were charging for ours, weren't we? $650. It's not extortionate. When I looked at it, I was thinking, is this a typing error? Like, is it 1,600? Because it's a massive house, like I say, in the middle of this gorgeous bush. And when I pressed the little commute button, because on Trade Me now, they've got this fab little thing where you can...
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah. And when I pressed it and I put in Auckland Hospital, because I didn't know anywhere else in Auckland. So I was like, oh, yeah, I work in Auckland Hospital. And it was like, it's going to take you an hour on the bus. And it's like, which to us, like you say, if that's what you want to do, it's fine, Yeah,
especially if you don't mind that to kind of read and relax on I find the public transport easy to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this coming from somebody who never used public transport, the first time I got on the bus in Auckland was very much going like, how do I do this? I mean, just because in the States you hardly ever, at least where I lived, there was never a whole lot of that kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
But here I know a lot of people that use public transport to get back and forth to work every day.
Right. So if you have an influx of loads of Brits and Americans coming to Whangaparaoa, it's all down to you then, isn't it?
Yeah. It's okay. I wouldn't notice except for the American accents. I don't hear a whole lot of American accents. So it would throw me off to be like, wait.
Oh,
Because
Ryan,
I do that every once in a while.
I just want to say thank you so much for just joining me and just, showing a light on Auckland that I didn't know about and just exploring that topic with you. It's been absolutely wonderful. And do you promise that you'll do another podcast with me and talk about like the money and the mortgages? And I'm really keen to know about wages and cost of living and things like that. And just health insurance.
That's a big stickler. I know you and I kind of talked about some of that when it comes to Americans and dealing with the money side of things. So
we've got some good stories. Okay.
Yes. I'd be happy to go through all of that.
Okay.
Because it's not nearly as bad as you think if you're an American watching this right now. So,
all right. Okay, Ryan. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Liz.
Okay. See you soon.
Cheers.
Bye.
Hello.
My mother thanks you.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello.